we're tracking production hour by hour, downtime. We've got budgets and plans and capacities and things that we are aiming to meet every day, and we're tracking to those every day. Yields, production. Production is plan versus actual in my mind. If you don't have a plan, that's pretty dangerous, and if you're not measuring to your plan, then that too is pretty dangerous.
Welcome to Manufacturing Insiders. Today we're going to have an interesting conversation, a little bit out of the box. For us, a lot of the manufacturing guests we have on, deal with industrial manufacturing, component manufacturing. Josh is actually in meat processing, so meat manufacturing. And I think there's some interesting lessons that, a broader manufacturing audience can take away from some of the things that they're doing at AlaTrade. Josh has a long track record in this industry, and he's had a lot of success. He's also, like all of us, had some failure that I think is interesting to learn from. But he's moved very quickly into the CEO position in this company, and he's making some big strides. They're in a tough market, and it's very respectable what he's been able to accomplish there. So welcome to Manufacturing Insiders, Josh.
Glad to be here. Thanks for the opportunity to be on, Nate.
Absolutely. So just give us a little bit of how you got here. I thought your story about, getting into your own business, purchasing a business and building it up, and then, things didn't quite work out is interesting, and, how that transitioned to the job you're in now.
Yeah, well, to start, so I'm an industrial engineer by trade. I've got a degree from the University of Arkansas. And so that's what really started things off for me. I went to work for Tyson Foods in a poultry processing plant, and was doing a lot of labor standards, production standards, and doing traditional industrial engineering work. Quickly went into production and started to really develop a love for operations and production. And then had a call to go to Smithfield Foods to go back into engineering, and kind of young and dumb and chasing money, and made a decision to make a move. And it was a good move though. I learned a lot, met a lot of great people, but I led industrial engineering. In the end, I was director of industrial engineering for Smithfield Packing, a division of Smithfield Foods. And so again, learned a lot there, and then again, probably a young, dumb move, but I decided that I was going to buy a business. Thought I knew everything there was to know about the food manufacturing business, and so left and bought a food processing plant, a small food processing plant. And the first year was great. We were doing ready-to-eat pork barbecue and some salads, ready-to-eat salads. First year was great. Second year, I couldn't stop the bleeding fast enough. The pork market had gone up, and I was reluctant to put in place price increases because I was worried we were going to lose customers or sales velocity, and so just not knowing the business well enough, it really came around and bit us, and we had some regulatory issues that really hurt us, and so all in all, we ended up divesting of that and got out of it in a pretty good way. And then I found myself back at Tyson Foods. They were very willing to let me back in, and so quickly found myself back in a production role as an assistant plant manager. Then went to plant manager and complex manager and vice president of operations, and so all that happened in a matter of about 12 years or so. And then in the wake of a pretty bad financial year for them, they elected to eliminate several officer positions, one of which was mine. And I elected to be severed instead of taking a lesser role and staying with the company. So that's what has brought me to AlaTrade. And AlaTrade Foods is a longtime partner of Tyson Foods. I had a relationship with AlaTrade when I was with Tyson, and so it just kind of made sense for me to, and they're in the town that I live in this area. Mm-hmm. It just worked out good. I was able to interview with the the CEO at the time and the board, and they were looking for somebody to take over because the CEO was retiring. And at the time, it just all worked. They felt like I was a good fit, and my experience, my relationship with Tyson, and it all just worked. And so I've been here for about a year and a half, and currently CEO. Started out as president, and we've had a really strong year. Thrilled to be here.
Awesome. So what's attracted you to the food processing industry? You know, I would think with your skill sets in your management experience, it would be pretty easy to transition into more of a, you know, traditional manufacturing environment where, you know, you don't have to worry as much. I mean, you still have to worry about commodity prices, but you're not going to get, you know, salmonella outbreaks with steel. And, you know, there's a lot of additional challenges, FDA, things like that. So do you just love that industry? Is there just something that attracts you to it, or is it just your experience?
Oh, well, probably a little bit of both, but, you know, initially it was just, you know, my degree is this, and Tyson was hiring industrial engineers, and it fit. But a lot of the people in our industry will say this, that you know, it's hard to get away from chicken or poultry, and so there's a lot of things really that I can think of. One is the intensity of it. It's very fast paced and very intense. You're dealing with a live animal, you know, and this is primarily when I'm with Tyson Foods, but that mindset really conveys through this second processing business that I'm in today. But you're dealing with a live animal with tons of variability, and yes, you've got the USDA that to contend with and regulations. It's perishable. Again, the variability, you know, when you think about somebody like steel, or I did an internship with Waterloo Industries, which I think is now something different, but they make toolboxes.
Okay.
And, you know, everything is, you bring a roll of steel in, you form it into drawers and cabinets, and you put it together. And I mean, there's no variability. I mean, you're constantly trying to reduce variability. And so our world is just full of it. And so every day is different. You know, you're cleaning the plant every night, and you got to start back up and run. And I mean, it's just always a challenge, and it's fun, and there's something that draws you to it. It's very analytical. When you think about the process of taking something and disassembling it,
Mm-hmm.
and then you add value back by marinating it, breading it, and fully cooking it, and packaging it. And that whole process of taking a live animal, slaughtering it, dressing it, chilling it, deboning it, and then adding value back through further processing, is just it's enamoring. Really, it's really pretty cool. And so that's what has kind of kept me in it, and the intensity. I think just the pace of how we move and how we react to different things. So it's fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you definitely have to be a person that thrives in a somewhat chaotic environment.
Controlled
You know,
chaos.
yeah, to appreciate that. And so given all of this variability, all of these additional factors that a lot of manufacturers don't have to think as much about, I would imagine you would have to have some pretty refined business processes that maybe someone in the component manufacturing space could take away. Maybe they don't need it, but you absolutely need it. Like, can you give me some examples of some of that?
Well, yeah, I mean, we've got SOPs for about everything. We've got product specs, you know, we've got pretty tight conformances around. Even though the variability is there, we've got things that we've got to stay within. But SOPs, process monitors, you know, a lot of places we're tracking production hour by hour, downtime. You know, we've got budgets and plans and capacities, and you know, things that we are aiming to meet every day, and
Mm-hmm.
we're tracking to those every day. Yields, production. You know, production is plan versus actual in my mind. If you don't have a plan, that's pretty dangerous, and if you're not measuring to your plan, then that too is pretty dangerous. And so, I think that's really our MO is we've got a good plan. We know where we need to be, even with the variability, and we're measuring to that constantly to make sure that we're on track and gonna be profitable and where we need to be for a week or a month or a year.
Right. So, when you talk about commodities, a lot of companies, and I've heard this from quite a few guys that, when they saw the tariffs coming down the pipeline, they stockpiled components that they were getting from Asia and things like that. You don't really have that luxury in this business to stockpile material or animals or meat. So how do you deal with these fluctuations in the commodity prices?
Well, yeah, so we're buying chicken as raw material, and we buy that on the market generally, unless we've got some kind of fixed arrangement or a contract. But then we're also selling on a market, so those markets generally follow each other.
Okay.
And so we'll buy something again on a market, sell it on a different market, or maybe sometimes the same market. And so the relationship there stays pretty well in check, but it follows the industry really closely based on demand, supply and demand, which doesn't necessarily always correlate with the input cost of the industry. It really just is about supply and demand and bird health and things like that. But right now, unfortunately, grain and corn, and the input cost for poultry is pretty low. And I think the integrators or the guys that have the live chickens and are growing the live chickens are doing pretty well right now because those input costs are low. But yeah, it's not a huge risk for us because of that market, and we don't have live animals, not feeding them. The tariff situation hadn't really impacted us because we don't do a lot of international business. We were doing some chicken paws for a while, and that was pretty dynamic, and we have eventually divested of that process and that business. But it's we just ride the markets like everybody else. Is what I say.
Yeah. I'm going to jump back to the SOP conversation because I think this is important, across the board in manufacturing. And we talk about this a lot in the context of sort of that aging workforce where, you're going to have to replace some of these guys that have the knowledge of how to troubleshoot machine issues or just what the basic process on the production line is. How do you record and then those SOPs and then transfer that knowledge? Because a new employee is not going to be going into a booklet to review. Like, how do you provide that information to them in real time and allow them to, learn from the more experienced guys?
Well, a lot of the key SOPs are documented, and fortunately, we don't have a lot of turnover, and so machine operators, leads, supervisors, those kind of people, we've been really pretty lucky to maintain a core group of people that maintain that tribal knowledge and know how everything's supposed to work. But yeah, I think when somebody were to come in new into one of those key positions and need to be exposed to an SOP, it would probably be a visual reading of a document, going out on the floor, experiencing what the work is, having direct observations, some shadowing, just making sure that they're aligned to what the right way of doing something is. And that's a core process or methodology in our training of somebody that's going to be in one of those key roles. So yeah, just to restate that, the big ones, the important ones we've got written and documented, and then a executable process of making sure that they're trained on that document, and then go experience it on the floor to make sure everything is done appropriately with oversight. Is the standard process.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, and in that low employee turnover, I think is another interesting thing about our earlier conversation. So you guys are a ESOP, 100% employee owned, right?
We are.
Yeah.
Yes, we are.
which that's a really interesting concept that I hadn't known too much about. So how does that work exactly? How do you transfer ownership to employees?
Well, so when our founder wanted to exit his ownership of the business, this was an opportunity that surfaced for him as a good exit plan, and it turned out to be obviously his exit plan. And there's a lot of I think pride and gratitude that's given back to the team members to be able to do this, to sell the company, but it to the team members, but it basically is bought by trust. The company is bought by trust.
Okay.
It's financed, of course. You can do in our case the seller financed and took a note on half, and then we did senior debt with the bank. And so you finance that, pay it down. Of course, you've got a debt load there early on, but the trust then has shares associated with the valuation of the company, and every year we do a valuation, and every year we give out shares based on annual salary. And so as an hourly team member, they're going to get a certain amount based on their annual salary, and all the way up to me, right? And I get a portion. And then based on our company performance and the remaining shareholders' equity, that determines our valuation and how much the shares are worth. And it's really just it's a qualified retirement fund that just builds year over year over year. If people stay with us, they have to be with us for 3 years to become vested. And the whole goal here is to pay down debt and improve our company performance and valuation and drive the share price up, just like a publicly traded company would,
Right.
For the amount of outstanding shares that you have. And then that's where you really start to see the value as a member of the company is when share value goes up. You hang around for 10, 15, 20 years, and you amass these shares, and the company's doing well and thriving, and then you retire, and you've got this a fruitful retirement account that you didn't contribute to at all. It's completely free to all of us, and at retirement, at the end of the rainbow, you've got a pretty good sum of money that can amass if the company's done well and manage the ESOP well and plan for sustainability. And it really is a little secret too. And for us as a company, there's tax benefits. We really, as we're about to convert to an S corp, we in the transaction we became a C corp. Had to do that for 5 years. We're about to become an S corp, and we won't pay taxes once we become an S corp. So, and the intent is to take that tax money and fund the ESOP and the retirement account, and then the employees will pay taxes on the money that they take out in retirement with hopefully a much lower tax bracket, right?
Right.
So it is it's great for our company. It's great for our team members, our employees. ESOPs, again, they're just a little secret. They provide a great exit strategy for our founder. They create great empowerment for us. They're a good tax vehicle for us as a company, and just a lot of great benefits that I think people don't really realize.
Yeah. And I can definitely see the immediate benefits of it. Certainly if an employee feels like they have some ownership in the company and that what they do contributes to their own retirement, that's a good thing. I wonder, let's just say the company's in business for another 50 or 70 years. I would assume you've given away a lot of shares at that point, and then you've got this big load of people that are pulling from that. Like, how can you manage that?
Yeah, so we manage it through sustainability studies, which are really a fundamental part of being an ESOP. There's organizations out there that make sure that you don't get yourself in the point where your liability there is is beyond what you can afford. But I think the easiest the way I think about it right now, and there's still a lot for me to learn about ESOPs, but we're paying right now, we're paying debt to our founder and the banks, which is a a sizable burden every month or year. And what's going to happen is as the ESOP gets older and we hand out more shares, we get more value, more time. That financial burden really is just going to shift to now we owe our our employees that money, which is what we want to do. But there's going to be a point where that could escalate, to your point, beyond a point that we can afford, and so we're going to have to start dialing back our percentage of what is it for? I can't think of the terminology, but basically the percentage of return that they would get from the ESOP, we would have to start dialing that back. It's almost like a 401k type company, doing more match, but then they realize, hey, we can't continue to afford to do this and dial it back. So there's going to be a time possibly where we have to, it's just a constant, again, sustainability process where you make sure you don't get out over your skis and you can't afford to support that. But really, that's what I'm working for. Not me personally, but I want our employees to have a huge retirement account that our company is healthy enough to support, and they stayed with us and helped us get to where we are, and now they've got a nice retirement fund that they can enjoy life, in retirement. So
Right.
I hope we get. I mean, that's the plan, is to get to that point where we're like trying to figure out how are we going to pay all this retirement money.
Yeah, that's so I can definitely see why you need that outside organization to do studies and make sure you don't get too far into it. So after the 3 years, when an employee becomes vested, you're saying that's when they would receive their first shares or ownership in the company?
No, you receive your first shares 90 days after 90. No, it's not 90 days. I think it's 1,000 hours of working with us.
Okay.
So if you've been with us over 1,000 hours, that's like the first checkbox.
Okay.
And then 3 years, you get shares after the first year of being here, but they don't fully vest. So like if you were to leave after year 2, you basically wouldn't get anything.
Right.
You need to be with us for 3 years for those shares to fully vest, but we've been giving them to you at year 1, year 2, year 3. Now you're vested, but you don't get anything. You don't get a payout until you actually retire.
I see.
But there is a clause in our plan, I think after either 15 or 20 years. So let's just say somebody comes to us at a real young age, they stay with us for a long time, and they're thinking, hey, this thing's getting pretty big. I've got all my chips on AlaTrade. I don't feel real comfortable with that. I would like to take some of that out and roll it into another qualified retirement account so that I can diversify.
Okay.
That is permissible in our plan. I think maybe it's 10 years.
Okay.
Because there is some risk associated with the success of our company and
Right.
ESOP and our plan, and so you want people to feel like they can take some of that at some point and diversify and roll it into another qualified plan, but they still can't have the money until they retire. It's got to go to a qualified plan. So I think that's the big key, that maybe some people, it's not a profit sharing, it's not an annual incentive or anything like that. It is truly a retirement account, and it has to be used only for qualified retirement.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. How big is your team there?
We've got in total management and all, we're somewhere between 1,500-1,600 people in total.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's bigger than I expected.
Yeah.
Where does that place you in the chicken processing competitive environment?
I thought you were going to ask ESOP world. We're pretty big in the ESOP world, but in the chicken environment, we're we're probably pretty small relative to, you think about Tyson and come down to Pilgrims and Cook and Mount. I mean, there's a lot of big Tyson players, but and there's a lot of us out there that are kind of in this middle ground where we're serving those guys and doing things for them. And I would say in that group we're pretty big. We're doing about 6.5 to 7 million pounds a week of product that we bring in and convert into different form and send out to either end users, distributors, brokers, or back to integrators, I call them manufacturers, to further process.
Yep. Okay.
So we're pretty good size in that arena.
Okay. And so you were saying you're pretty good size when it comes to ESOPs too.
Yes. ESOPs really, and again, I'm new to ESOPs, but they really are commonplace in white collar type. Think about engineering firms, and there's a big Department of Defense firm in Huntsville, just north of us, called Torch Industries or Torch Technologies, and they're really big, but they're still not, in terms of headcount, near as big as us. But I think a lot of times that's where you're going to see ESOPs or smaller companies. I think in Alabama there's only like 75 ESOPs in total. So,
oh wow, okay.
Again, there's not a lot of them, and it's a little secret.
Yeah. And I want to do some more research on it too, because I do find it interesting. Because as an employer, you always want to, and it's sort of a pipe dream in most cases, but you want employees to feel a sense of ownership, and not just be somebody that punches a clock. So I think it's a very interesting concept. But then obviously, I think most people's concerns would be, loss of control, those long-term costs, physical costs associated with it and things like that. But it sounds fascinating. So with that number of employees, I'm interested to hear, how you've been successful as a CEO. What are some of the, I guess, personality characteristics or strategies that you use to really, maintain productivity with the team, make sure your managers are treating people correctly and, providing the right oversight? Like, how do you manage all that?
Well, I've really got to give all that to the people before me that built the culture of this company. The company's 25 years old, and obviously started by our founder, Davis Lee, and then he hired a guy named John Pittard to run the organization for a lot of years, and then John, who was instrumental in hiring me. So we've really got a great base and culture and foundation here, and I've just had to come in and really kind of embrace that and support it and carry it on without a lot of change or disruption. And that really has been my plan. Now, the other thing that comes to mind though is, I've run plants. When I was plant manager, we had an hourly head count of about 1,600 people. So I've run a plant that's larger than our entire company. I was complex manager of a complex that was larger than our entire company, and then as vice president had plenty of responsibility there. So, it was not to, brag about all that, but this is what I've been doing. It's and have been effective and done well in doing those things, and so it's just an easy translation for me. And I think that the team here respects my experience. I've still got a lot of people I need to get to know. I've really had my head down trying to understand more about our business, and because I didn't know the sales side of our industry at all, and revenue generation and business development. And so that's really where I have been, for the majority of the last eight months since taking over as CEO. That's really where my focus has been. And so we've got a great operations lead. He takes care of the plants. We have staff meeting every week, and We have a daily call that I'm on, and so we're just really a tight organization that functions as a team, and everybody knows what everybody's doing and what we're working on, and kind of where we're going. And we've had strategy meetings last year and just had one this year, to really make sure we're all aligned on where we're headed. And so I don't know if I've done a great job of answering your question, but it just feels like it was kind of the natural migration for me to keep doing what I had been doing, learn the sales side and the revenue generation side, and really just kind of not change anything either. Just like, let's keep doing what we're doing and maybe polish some things around revenue generation and pricing. And I was telling you about our new accounting system that we're doing, that I was exposed to standard costing at both Smithfield and Tyson. We didn't have that here, and so now we're implementing standard costing at AlaTrade, and so it's going to give us it's going to give us a very clear picture of what it costs us to produce every item that we offer to our customers, which we don't have today. Everything's very high level, macro level, not real granular. So a lot of times when I'm pricing something, it's difficult to really dial it in and know, are we going to make the margin that we're looking for or not? And so this is going to give us the visibility down to an SKU level, and it's going to help us hold the operations team accountable for these benchmarks or standards that we put in place for yield, throughput, crewing, overhead cost, and really help us dial in our product cost, and also our pricing and margin side of the business. So that's really been exciting. I've been doing a lot of work on that because I've got experience in that as an industrial engineer, and so those are the kind of things that I've been able to bring to the table to help AlaTrade and hopefully get us to a new level.
Yeah, it seems like that would be very valuable information. I'm always pushing people to track more data and understand their processes better. You'd be shocked how many shops I talk to, and it's like, well, what does it actually cost you to make that item? And they have no idea.
Yeah.
They honestly have no idea. And it's very difficult to, know where to put your focus in improving processes if you don't know what's costing you money.
That's right.
Yeah. So I can imagine it would be pretty complex to put that system in place. How long do you expect it to take you to, have it fully up and running?
Well, it's taken far longer than I wanted it to. We started this quest back in March or February or March, and so here we are, and we're about to put the finishing touches on it, and turn it over. I guess put it in production would be the right word. And so we're hoping to be done by the end of September, and that's the plan, and we're all committed to making that happen. So I really believe it's going to make a difference in our business, on how we price and how we hold our operations team accountable, so that we can see the variances of, we're missing it here, but we're doing really good here. And so, it's just really going to expose a lot of the details that we've not had, and so really looking forward to that. But it should be done by the end of this month. I mean, it's been a journey. It's been a lot of work.
Yeah. Well, what was the name of the software that you're using for that?
3C is the name of the company.
Okay.
Good plug for them. Impact ECS is the name of I think the software that the company 3C makes, and I was exposed to it at both at Smithfield or Premium Standard, and at Tyson they used it some as well.
And this could have application to a lot of manufacturers, right?
Oh yeah, they're across various different industries, and just happen to be kind of one of the, other than SAP, one of the experts in the meat industry. But yeah, their customer list is long and broad.
Okay.
I would definitely encourage anybody that doesn't have, and maybe you're big enough to, things are getting out of hand and you don't know what something costs you, they'd be a good one to look at to help come in and really refine the process and get you down to an SKU level.
Yeah, absolutely. What is the actual classification of the software? Like, what do you call it?
Um, I, gosh, I guess just a costing system,
Costing
costing
system. Okay.
platform. I mean, that's what they do is costing, product costing. And in any company, what does it cost you to make this? You go from here to here, you buy this, and then you build your structure of this makes that, and this makes this, and things can flow through, and so you're just picking up cost at every point. And I can think of Waterloo Industries that I work for. It would be a prime candidate for them.
Hmm.
I think they had something else like AS400 or something that did that. But anyway, great company, and um, would encourage anybody to take a look at it if they're struggling to understand cost better.
Yeah, I agree. So what is your what is your outlook for the company? What are you looking for as far as growth? And if you're already selling to some of these major players, I would assume a component of that would be selling more to them, but then
Sure.
possibly selling more direct to, consumer, things like that. Like what's the strategy you're going after?
Yeah. Well, growth, obviously, I mean, we're not looking to stand still, and I've just hired a VP of growth and marketing to really champion that strategy. But the plan right now is I'll say it, I think maybe in two ways. So retail, we don't have any presence in retail today. Everything we do is either for food service or industrial or commercial type accounts. So
Okay.
we are actively, and you can see on my shirt, this is our brand. This is our founder's mother, Eva's Chicken. And so we've created this. Well, the brand has been around for a long time, but we've redesigned it, given it a new facelift, and then we're working on some retail items that we're going to introduce, and we're going to have to use co-packers to do that. But the base products will come out of our plants. Um,
Okay.
so retail is
That's to
one.
the grocery stores then.
Grocery stores, yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And then the other one is we want to develop and foster more relationships with end users. So today we are servicing these integrators and manufacturers that have the relationships with the end users, um, and so and even distributors and brokers. We do a lot of commodity type production that we will send to a broker that will then connect that with an end user. So we're really focused on getting to the end user and building the relationship and selling directly to them rather than going through um, a broker or somebody else that might require that they get a margin and
Right.
then they own the relationship with that end user. So my opinion is we're big enough and um, have the resources and the supply and the capabilities to be that direct source to a sizable end user. And
Hmm.
so that really is our target along with retail. And but we've got a great business today, and we've got great partners and great customers. It's not to throw shade on them or to say that we're going to forsake any of them, because that's really not the plan. They've got us to where we are, and we're grateful for that. I think this is more of like an extension of where we are today.
Yeah.
How do we get further down the food chain and develop better relationships with end users and retailers?
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, it makes sense. And that's always a tricky, kind of a tricky path to walk because, when you're working through, you've got kind of that distributor model. You a lot of times have a difficult time going directly to the end user because
right.
then the distributors are not happy with you and things of that nature.
Yes, yeah, that's a delicate dance, and we're sensitive to that. And again, we are grateful for who has got us to where we are, and we're not looking to burn any of those bridges, but we're we're we're, we're looking beyond them now in terms of new customers to build those relationships with end users.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, very interesting stuff. I mean, I love to talk about the ESOP. That's something that I definitely am going to look more into, and I think a lot of companies could. The costing software I think is very important, very interesting. Even in my industry, we do website development, and how do you know how much it actually costs you to do this? Because you have a designer involved, and a developer, and a content writer, and a project manager, and all these different components that go into it. So it's information that's, I know for a fact, is going to be real difficult to come up with the solid numbers, but that's really cool. So yeah, I mean, I think a lot of great stuff you shared today, and I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, man, glad to be here and glad to share some insight and anything else I can help you or anybody else with, please reach out.
Yeah, well, actually, that reminds me, I do ask this question, and I didn't ask it. So I always like to kind of end on a session of, you know, have you been looking for any resources, whether it be, consulting on a topic, or software, or employees? Is there anything that you've been kind of looking for? And if somebody was listening and they were a good fit, you'd be interested in talking to them?
Well, nothing, unfortunately, nothing comes to mind with, just having done this software implementation or what we're working on. And I've just hired a new sales and marketing individual, and so right now we're trying to close out this year and in a good place. And so unless there's some potential customers out there that
Yeah.
that need some services that we can provide, that would be it'd be great to talk to anybody that needs our services in the way of producing chicken
Yep.
in any form. But no, nothing. I actually did a consulting work in between jobs when I left Tyson and this with an artificial intelligence company that does work in the protein industry, and their name is LumaChain, and great company. And so, AI is kind of all the craze right now, but if I was going to go down an AI path, I would definitely reach out to them. We just haven't gotten there yet to do it, but they've got a really cool product and could be helpful to us at some point. But
Yep.
but Nate, nothing unfortunately comes to mind right away that we need.
Sure.
That I can think of.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. But yeah, certainly customers, that's a goal here too, is to promote you guys. So, well, thanks a lot for coming on, Josh, and look forward to chatting with you some down the road.
Yes, sir. Thank you.